Robert Priseman has just completed his latest series of meticulously observed interiors. But these 5 pictures represent a radical departure from his work so far.
Unlike all my other paintings, this series isn't about hope. It's about the loss of hope. The idea to do something with execution was on my mind for quite some time, but I didn't really want to do it because it's not something that you want to spend your time thinking about and looking at. But then I thought, well, actually, it could have real value, and it could be interesting and challenging to me. And I think if you're challenging yourself, if you're putting yourself in a position where you've really got to question your own moral integrity, then not only is life more interesting for you, but I think it's more interesting for people who are engaging with your work. And I am looking to do that. I am looking to challenge and engage the viewer.
To ease his way into the subject, Priseman worked with master printer Ian Wilkinson at the Goldmark Atelier in Uppingham to produce a series of 12 etchings of execution methods from around the world.
I was very struck by the idea that a piece of equipment like the firing squad restraint chair is manufactured, but it isn't manufactured just to kill one person. It's built to kill one person and another person and another person and another person. It's, in a sense, a mechanical process where the human hand has been very deeply involved. The idea of producing etchings in this series appealed to me in the sense that it had a connection to that thought process, that each etching is unique and individual, but at the same time they're all the same. The plate, for me, has a slight industrial quality to it, and that, in my mind, links to the slight industrial nature of the killing process.
Producing the etchings gave Priseman the confidence to develop 5 larger-scale paintings, focusing on the 5 different methods of execution still used in America today.
This is the space I work in. It used to be a bedroom. This is the sort of main wall I put photographs and drawings and I just kind of gather as much information as I can, and I just spend time living with it, looking at it, and then I'm sort of trying to find a way of distilling the information right down. It's almost like looking at something that's chaotic and you're trying to extract something out of the chaos of it all.
Using photography is a very important part of the painting process for me.
Normally, when I'm working, I'll go along to a space that I want to photograph, and I'll take a whole range of photographs myself. With the execution series, I found I wasn't able to get the access. If I'd been a journalist, that would have been a different matter. But being an artist, it just wasn't possible. After about a year of trying, I decided I still want to do the series, but I'm going to have to work in a way that isn't ideal for me. So I scoured all the images I could find of execution facilities. There's loads and loads and loads of photographs of electric chairs, and so I just gathered together as many as I could. And with the lethal injection chamber, as you can see, there's lots of sort of bits of photograph of the same facility, which is in Texas.
This is the photograph I sourced for the Walla Walla hanging chamber painting. I created this drawing. This is the sort of final drawing that I made, and if I overlay it, you can see some of the changes that I've made there. I've added considerably to either side of the image, and I've cropped the top and bottom off. I wanted just to clip the bottom of the trapdoor so that the viewer, when they're looking at the painting, gets the sense that they might actually fall through that hole in the floor. There's quite a lot of detail I've removed from the image. Most obviously I've taken out the figure in the doorway. I've also taken out the light here above the door. I've taken out the clock. I've removed all of those things because I want the viewer to get a sense of being able to project themselves into that room. And I think if you load the image with too much detail, what happens is it becomes like an illustration, and it's a block to the imagination. So it's a bit like listening to a play on the radio as opposed to watching a film. I'm thinking of paint in terms of it being a metaphor for emotion. It's like you can trap the emotion in a gel. It's like an emotional gel. I think of painting as being very much like a game. It's like child's play, but you're able to explore extreme ideas at a safe remove.
The other thing that I find very interesting is I like all the pictures to be a little bit smaller than life size. You're the master of it. You've got mastery over this environment, and you can bend it to your will. You can make it what you want it to be. You can take some of the terror out of it. It gives you an emotional distance that enables you to cope with the thoughts of what's going on. In a way, it's quite nice that the oil paint takes so long to dry, because it becomes quite a meditative process, and it's spun out over such a long period of time that you're not making sort of rash decisions. You're making very sort of careful, considered, meditative decisions over the work. So it's not something that evolves in some sort of mental fury. It's something that develops over a sort of sustained period. It's considered, I suppose. I want the painting to in some way be soothing, to be approachable, because the subject matter itself is actually quite challenging.
Working on this stuff, over months, mentally it's very, very distressing, and especially if you're quite a sort of sensitive person, mentally it's just not a good place to be. But but there's a sort of, I suppose there's a sort of sense of duty about doing the work, a sense of compulsion about doing the work. When you're stuck indoors doing these paintings, they're all interiors. They're interiors where murder takes place. It's pretty gruesome stuff, and of course you're thinking about it all the time.
You can get soaked up in the iconography of death and execution. You can feel a bit overawed by the amount of material you've got in your studio when you're working on it.
Yes, it isn't easy, but when you're doing something like that, you don't sort of take it on and think, no, I just can't cope with it, I'm going to give it up. You just work through it, and you just sort of see it through to the end, and you just find ways of coping with whatever difficult mental headspaces you have to deal with. You just get on with it. When I'm looking at something like the death penalty, I just think, I don't want it to exist anywhere in the world. And I'm doing it in as detached a way as I can, because I want the reality of what's happening to speak for itself. So I don't really want it to be my own voice.